got the fly problem
I think you got it.
pretty well straight.
Can I have the keys? I forgot the boys' water.
But just in case, we're going to give Keith one. Good morning. Now we'll just, I think, as I was saying, I think we have the fly problem pretty well lived. But just in case, we had people bring 3 fly swatters this morning. So Ron, if somebody just kind of raises up their hand and says over here, you go after it on this side. And then I don't know where our sergeant of arms is on the right side, but we'll have to ask Keith or somebody over there to do the same. I don't know how many leaves you have at your house, but we're going to be, I was talking with Vic about this yesterday, we'll be getting up leaves at Thanksgiving time, I think, this year. Maybe they'll come all down in the next few weeks, but it has to dry out to be able to get them all up too.
We had our trees cut down, so we didn't have it.
I was going to say, one of our neighbors did that too, unless you go with Fred Chester's approach to it. God put them there and he can move them. Yeah. So they move them to the neighbor's yard. That works good if you live in the country and there's no neighbors to. In our prayers today, we want to remember Dave Wood, one of our veterans who has been waiting a good while to have prostate surgery at the VA hospital up in Cleveland. And that time is drawing near. If it stays on target for middle of November, you can see that in your newsletter. Also want to keep Nellie Trent in our prayers. She had an MRI and an ultrasound done at the hospital at St. Joe's. I believe it was on Friday. It might have been on Thursday. I think it was Friday. And they really, she was only there an hour or two, but they're checking to see if she had a stroke. So they're waiting to hear results on that. They will probably be with us this morning, I think. And also, I want us to remember Haley in our prayers. She begins her new job this week, and she's really in full swing at being polypregnata. So just starting a new job without being 8 months pregnant would be difficult enough. And Haley says she's kind of nervous because she hasn't practiced in quite a while, but I think we all know Haley's not going to do well. So she actually starts with the Akron Babies Children's Hospital right there in Cortland. They're going to be working, I think, 3 days a week, 8-hour shifts. So keep her in your prayers as she reacclimates to that area. And it won't be too long, and she'll be taking a break to have a baby. And also in our prayers, I'll just give you 2 first names, Chase and Caroline, and that is a nephew and his fiance or wife, I'm not sure which it is, of Margie Popovich, and they have been having some marital strife. Just pray that the two can try to have an open mind and be reasonable and patient with each other. Any others that we want to have in our prayer? Dick and Joe Moss have sold their trailer down in Florida, and Dick and Rhonda were down this week to get rid of it and close out. I don't know how that's done, or how it's worked, but I think they're due back home today, so maybe we'll know later.
Yeah. Cindy was, my sister-in-law had to go to the emergency room Friday night. They thought she had the flu, it turns out she actually has pneumonia. She's home now and everything, but.
Okay, Sydney Flax, let's keep her in prayer. Any others? Trudy?
Ray Village, he goes walking to work 4:30 in the morning.
I'm sorry, Ray Village, what now?
Walking to work 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And cars were, and he had to jump to get out of the way or he would have got hit and fell and broke his arm in 3 places.
And,
Hardly hit him, but the ground he did.
let's see, where was he working now? Guy Eagle in Liberty, yeah.
So he's off work now, but they said that once his arm's okay. They didn't, all they did was put a sling on it. But apparently it's 3 breaks in the arm. Right on.
Let's keep Ray in our prayers too. Any others? Brian, would you lead us in a prayer?
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for this opportunity that we have to come together and study your word, and we pray that each of us will gain something from this that will help us to draw closer to you, to be a better example of those around us, and to draw others to you. We pray for all of those, Lord, that were mentioned this morning, that you will be with them, that those that are suffering, that you will restore their health, comfort them, help them, and their families to look to you for strength at all times. We pray that now that you'll be with us through this time of study. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I'm just writing down this name. Stephen, is Sydney with a Y or 2 E's? Well, 2 Y's? Yeah.
City, like the city, right? Yes.
Yeah. Let's open with a reading from Psalm 127, and I'm apologizing for this, but I don't feel like I really have to. What I'm apologizing for is the lesson last Sunday here, and we'll finish up lesson 14, go to page, or lesson 15 today. They're not interlaced with all kinds of scripture. I guess had I really searched hard, sometimes you could find a verse that you could say, well, this really talks about that. But there's a lot of things we'll be talking about today that Scripture doesn't say a whole lot about. So we just have to use some common sense and each other's wisdom and biblical principles. We know the biblical principles, and I guess here's the broad one. Psalm 127, verse 3 through 5. Behold, children are a gift of the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior, so are the children of one youth. How blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They shall not be ashamed when they speak with their enemies in the gate. So, obviously, the goal here is, number one, to acknowledge that we're thrilled with children. They are a gift or a reward, my translation says, from the Lord. And it talks about the responsibility of the parents to use them. The arrow metaphor means that you have to work it. If you've never shot a bow, Vic could set up a bale of hay out in the side yard here, and he could give you a bow and arrow, and I bet you very few of you could hit the target, just having started out. If you did, it would probably be sheer luck. Now, Tom, and I don't know, maybe Roseanne, have you done a bow? No, I'm not talking crossbow here, I'm just talking.
Yes, years ago.
So, Nick could probably do all right. Ron, have you shot a bow? Yeah. So some of y'all, you know what I'm talking about, though, but I'm not. I mean, I don't think I could hit the broadside of a barn. So you have to really hone that skill, and that's an image that we maybe miss in reading that. So dads and moms want to raise up kids, not just when they're little, but when they get to be older, to where you can sit at the gates and you cannot be ashamed, knowing that you received this gift from the Lord and you've tried to do your best and have done a good job at raising them. So we're talking about the teen years. some people are prone to call them the terrible teens or the teenage tyranny kind of a thing, but we talked about that's probably a bad rap. There's a lot of really good teens out there, and sometimes it's the case that you just have a few that have a bad attitude or bad behavior. It seems to poison the well to where everybody throws all the... Now there is maybe a legitimate argument that could be made as to why somebody wants to lump teenagers together, and that is because they are sometimes problematic. And you can maybe reflect on your own teen years, or if not your own, on raising teenagers, or if you're a grandparent now watching, maybe that's even one harder yet. What's harder than raising your teenagers? Watching your kids raise their teenagers, because you want to intervene maybe so much, and you have to show some kind of a protocol there. I chuckled in my mind yesterday. We had a good group that went to the field trip, and we had a good time in spite of it being drizzly. But when we were sitting at the restaurant, Pam said, Nicholas was sitting by me, young Nicholas, and then Grandma Pam beside him, and then Haley and Luke and Nick and Jeannie was beside me. Anyway, Pam said something kind of by way of, I don't remember exactly how, something kind of by way of a gentle rebuke to Nicholas, or a denial of a request, or some kind of a little thing. Haley, maybe you remember, Pam's not in here, but Pam followed it up by saying that that's okay with your mom. You know? Well, that's a small little thing, but that's probably an important thing. So all of you who are grandparents know that you can sometimes just do so much, especially when you're all together there. Now, maybe when I can imagine if the grandkids were little and they were dropped off at Trudy's house, I don't envision Trudy calling Brenda and saying, "Is it okay if I give Josh a squat?" Maybe she did. But, you know, grandparents...
Actually, I think sometimes the kids are better with the grandparents.
Yeah, I think so.
Especially, I mean, even with the parents around, they're better. But they like to test mom and dad.
There you go. All right, so we're kind of getting off the beaten path here, but let's go back now to teenagers, and we're trying to imagine that not only maybe that we're having teens at whatever stage of life, we're sympathetic with those that are trying to do their best to raise adolescents into adulthood. And we're just trying to think out loud here. And again, I've not gone to a book and extracted all of these points, except that I've read a lot of different things, and I kind of pulled some of the ideas. And I think I did borrow quite a bit, some thoughts from a couple of particular books here. But Faulkner and Burkeen, who used to, two brothers from Abilene Christian, they used to go around and hold a bunch of seminars, and then they made a video series that a lot of us had seen churches all across our brotherhood. But in their book, well, I'm still on lesson 14, but I want to look at the introduction to lesson 15, if you would. In the book, Whatever Happened to Mom, Dad, and the Kids, Faulkner and Burkeen say something like this. In some ways, the link between parents and their teenagers acts like a rubber band. The adolescent years demand a certain growing up and growing away. Growing independence is absolutely essential during these years if normal development is to take place. So, we all know that, even if we're having emotional trouble with it. We ran into Craig Cope not too long ago, and their three are gone now. Craig and Jan Craig all said we're having a little bit of trouble with empty nest. You can kind of see the look on his face. And then I think he went on to say we've been going to ball games for the last 20 years. And now Friday night rolls around and well, you can imagine the difficulty that some parents face when all of a sudden the kids are running, the house is empty, not meaning to make any of you tear up. And then on the other hand, some of you are ready to celebrate. You've been waiting for that, all of your parental career, for that day to arrive. But Faulkner and McKean go on to say, I'm now under the part helping them fly solo on lesson 15. If the rate of growing independence is agreed upon by both parent and child, not a formal agreement, just that they're both on the same page, the tension on the rubber band is minimal. The rubber band has certain elasticity and can stand some strain without difficulty, but if the teenager wants too much independence too soon, or if the parents are reluctant to turn over the control to the teenager as rapidly as the teenager would like, the tension can become almost unbearable. And we have all seen some level of that happen. So one of the goals of parenting is, yes, you must be protective, but you also have to watch being overbearing. And as teenagers go through their adolescent years, you've got to realize that you're helping them to get ready to fly solo. So you have to start, whether you want to or not, you have to start transitioning them. And part of that, the metamorphosis that they're going through and the transitioning that takes place, it needs to begin. It doesn't need to start like overnight. You know, like I don't know that you wait till a child is 18 and say, okay, now that you're 18, we'll start talking about what life's going to be like when you leave home. You actually begin to lay the groundwork for that well in advance, maybe from the time they begin their teenage years. And then the change is not quite so dramatic or sharp. When they get to be 18, they've already started to acclimate to some of these changes. So I've tried to think of some things here that good Christian parents ought to really want to help their children with. And in lesson 14, if we could just finish that up in a more generic way. Number 5, we've got to allow them to sprout their wings. I played Scrabble a couple of weeks ago with a young man. Some of you know him. His family used to attend here, and you'll probably guess who I'm talking about. And we were going to meet at the Howland Library, and this was his idea. He's in a Scrabble tournaments, and he wanted to use me to kind of bone up a little bit, which I enjoyed. Not only enjoy the challenge of playing, but the fun of helping sharpening him if I could in any way. He's much better at the game than I am. But he suggested, well, let's meet at a library. So we were going to go to Howland, and that day, I don't remember, Columbus Day, I think, I went to the Howland parking lot, and it was closed, Howland Library parking lot. So I tried to call on the phone and tell him, let's just go and play on my patio, which we ended up doing. But anyway, I went back, waited until about a quarter after the time, and they never showed, and then I went to my house and waited and tried to make some phone calls. But finally, they came in, and the young man is probably, I don't know, some of you could tell me better, he's in his 20s now, I bet you. But his mom dropped him off. And I'm not, okay, let me be real careful about this. I'm not meaning to imply that signaled that he doesn't have his license. He very, very well may. And his mom might have just been on the way. In fact, I know that she dropped him off and ran to do some other errands. And so that might have been the expeditious way to kill two birds with one stone. Why drive two cars across town when I've got to go to Michael's, and so I'll just drop you off. But my point is, let's just imagine if somebody's 20 and they don't have their license yet, and mom's trucking them to and fro, is that good? Now, of course, every circumstance has to be thought about carefully, because some kids maybe will never get their license. Jeannie works with all
We
kinds of...
have a teenage daughter, and she is 20, and her mom does truck her back and forth, but that's because Crystal, who is a granddaughter, wants to control what mommy can and cannot do. Because when mommy wants to go camping with us, she says, well, I've got to work this weekend, you have to take me to work. And she's had her permit to get her license, and has purposely not gotten them because mommy will have freedom then.
It could also be financial.
It could be financial. I mean, you need insurance to legitimately drive a car. So I'm not trying to sit in judgment. In fact, when I get with this friend next time, I'm gonna explore a little bit more. I know he's taking college courses online, and he's excelling in so many areas. He's quite an artist, and I'm buying one of his pieces of artwork for Jeannie for a birthday present. He's supposed to bring it to me pretty soon. So I'm not, I mean, this young man is, in many ways, he's excelled in so many areas. But I'm just using that as a talking point. So don't misread what I'm saying there. I'm not trying to fabricate something that really doesn't exist. I'm using that to say, how protective should we be? We know kids can get in a lot of trouble driving. So what's the answer to that? Well, I guess you could shelter them all their life, and you could say, you're not going to get by the wheel of the car as long as I can drive. Now, there may be tendencies and behavior, or as I said, Jeannie works with a lot of students that are never going to drive. They just don't, they don't have the capacity to do that. But we're talking about normal development here and in the natural flow of things. And so let's go ahead and look at lesson 15, because I've thrown out a bunch of things without any scripture citation, because we're working from the broad principle that God wants us to raise our children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So in lesson 15, let's go down to the section where we talk about some rites of passage. Every teenager goes through these. Sometimes they go through them really well, sometimes they don't. And a lot of the way that they transition through these is predicated upon parental leadership. So I'm talking about economics. Here's 6 things we want to talk about. We don't get to all of them. This lesson is yours, and you can look at it more, unless you want to come back to it next week and discuss it more. Economics 101, that ought to be something we talk about with our teenagers. General house rules, job seeking, they are going to need to get a job, unless you're going to keep them in your house forever. And if you are, good luck on that, especially with your sanity. Dating and driving, and this thing called social media, which years ago nobody had to worry about that. You know, you didn't have to concern. Well, social, we're social creatures, but we didn't have the issues that come up with smartphones and internet and all of that stuff. So let's start out here with first of all economics. Do you think it's important to teach your young adolescents how to manage their money? Well, Linda, you're a banker. We would expect.
Absolutely. That's what I said.
Absolutely. Well, why not? I mean, if their whole life is good, they're going to need that skill. So then the question becomes, okay, how do we teach them economics 101? Remember who it was that was talking about somebody, not as even as little children around the table, mom and dad did, and they got all $1 bills. and they laid out
A week's paycheck.
the whole week's paycheck, whatever it was. And the daddy and mommy had little categories. Okay, here's the phone bill, here's the electric bill, here's the water bill, here's the church contribution, here's, all of these things, new clothes for school, whatever, all the different spending categories. And you sit around the family and you say, okay, here's what daddy brought home this week, and here's where it's going to have to go. Now that's something so simple. Have any of you ever do that with your kids? This involves discussions, there's all kind of pros and cons about allowance. Do you give your kid an allowance or don't you? And if you're giving them an allowance, what is it for? And that gets into maybe house rules. You don't keep, a teenager is not expected to keep his room clean just so that he can get his allowance. If that's the rule, you need to maybe rethink it. But there are household chores. I was telling somebody the other day, one of my teenage chores, I was the garbage man. For a while, I really aspired to be a garbage man. And I had a big box and I had a little handle cut in it, and I would go all through the house and add all the garbage. And every week it was my responsibility to get up all the garbage, every pail in every room, had to be emptied, and the kitchen garbage in a special way. And then I would take it out to the road. And that was part of my responsibility. And I didn't get an allowance for that. I don't remember getting allowances. I do remember getting help when I needed it. And this then leads to all of these intersect. At what stage do you think about job seeking? Stephen, did you ever have a job as a teenager?
Very rarely, so not that.
Brian, did you have a job as a teenager? Maybe this is a generational thing. Shan, did you have a job as a Keith, teenager? No, you sure, a teenager. You didn't wait until you were 21? 15 years old, doing what?
I worked for some of them.
Okay, and Shan, what did you do?
You would know take care of mules.
Say that again.
Taking care of mules for the mines.
Taking care of mules for the mines. Wow. Vic, what did you do when you were a teenager?
I was self-employed.
Were you really?
Oh, I did a lot of odd jobs. I had a job every Saturday. I had to go clean Mom and Pop Stadium after football games. Anywhere I could pick up a few bucks.
Who else? Ron, did you have a teenage son?
Yeah, I did construction a little bit with my uncle and
Chris, did you?
Yeah, well, officially I worked at Leo's restaurant, but I mowed, I shoveled driveways, sold stuff. I had a locker at the school that I had filled with goodies and drinks and
And you
that sort
sold
of
those
thing.
on the side?
Yeah.
Well, so you have been a young entrepreneur from when?
He got shut down though and busted about it.
the last week of my senior year, they confiscated what was left. That was it.
Hey, what was the rule? You were undercutting the cafeteria? Or
Yeah, pretty much the vending and all that, yeah.
Nick, what was your teen years?
When I was I think when I was 14, I got my first job doing construction with Sonny Green. He was a Christian guy, champion green builders. But,
All right, so we're not knocking that Stephen didn't work, but what we're saying is you have to start integrating, and you reach a point, maybe this comes from necessity, where if your child is socially active and involved in different activities and stuff, they're constantly needing funds. So finally, you reach a point. I just saw a fly. I thought we got them all. You see, you get a point where you're going to have to think about getting a job. And you're not talking about a 13-year-old. But one of the best times of my teenage years was, I had two jobs, actually. I worked at a fly saucer gas station on the weekends, but during the week I worked at a little meat packing place that I walked to just down the road from our house. And that gave me money. And I felt really good that our family, we had 5 kids, so it really felt good to not have to be asking for money from mom and dad. That alone is that's a good motivator. But then that opened the door for the driving issue. At first I had a job but didn't have a car, but then you get a job and you start saving some money, and then you got to talk about, Dad, Mom, I want to get a car. I know I have to be a used one, and then you start getting this, lecture, well, buying the car is going to be the easy part. Keeping it going all the time, that's the hard part, and paying the insurance and all that. So that begins all of that sounds like, well, we could just sit back and take care of all that for the kids. Let's just keep them as long as we can, let's keep them in this little bubble where mommy and daddy take care of whatever they need. Is that the way to go? Nick?
Sam Davis was a professional football player for the Steelers.
Uh-huh.
And he spoke at camp.
Yes, he did. I remember that.
And I remember his
Huge
talk.
hands.
Yeah. I said his ring, but I always remember his talk. He says, I grew up as a prima donna. Everyone took care of everything for me. And then when I got out of football, I didn't even know how to schedule an air flight. I didn't know how to do anything, handle my money or anything. So he was just left like that.
Well, that's a really good illustration there, because so many things. Sometimes it is so much easier, let me just do it. I'll just take care of it for you. I really get a kick out of that commercial where the teenage boy has had a fender bender,
Oh,
and mom and dad are in bed, and he comes and he even says, don't worry, I've already talked to our insurance person about it, and I want to tell you, parents, that you are so smart to have everything in order like you do. And he still gets put grounded for a month, no car for the month. But how important is it for him to have to, or her to have to think, well, okay, what are you going to do for insurance? And do you have any idea how to get insurance and what it's going to cost? And I know it goes on mom and dad's policy and all that, but things like that are eye-openers to what it's going to be like when you get out in the real world. Well, let's continue this for next week too, but let's finish up with any more comments, because there's a lot of good stuff in this that I think, I'm even thinking one thing spills to another. At what stage, I remember when I was a freshman at Harding, I received in the mail an invitation for a Conoco credit card. And I got it. That was my first credit card. Do you give teenagers a debit card and a credit card? And if so, is that good and helpful and instructive and treat?
We had our youngest one, when he got his license at 16, we paid for the insurance. But Brian had a bad habit. He had a habit of mailboxes. It jumped right out in front of his vehicles. Never failed. One day he was coming home from a friend's house, he got cold, so he went to put a t-shirt on, ran over a mailbox. But the next day, he'd come in and tell us, we'd go out, we replaced every mailbox. He had to replace them and pay for them. And some people said, oh, that's just terrible. And I said, no, wait a minute. I didn't get the mailbox. He did. Now, he worked at a gas station. Unfortunately, most of his money went for mailboxes, gas, and insurance. So.
And Trudy's bringing up the last point on lesson 14. We have to hold kids accountable. Teenagers especially, they need to be accountable for their actions. Keith, and then Nick, and then we're gonna have to wrap. Are
I'll
you,
just, go ahead.
were you pointing to somebody else?
No.
Okay.
I was gonna say something about, it might take a little bit longer, but we watched Dr. Phil one time.
Yeah.
This lady, she was a dentist in Hollywood, right? She's
A
making
dentist?
a dentist, so she's making a lot of money.
Okay.
She had a 16-year-old girl, right? She didn't work at all. She didn't think work was beneath her. She expected $5,000 a month for allowances. She wanted to buy a Mercedes-Benz wagon, which is $250,000. Expected her mother, and her mother would give her this stuff. See, that's the problem.
Okay, well, that's a good illustration, and
Yeah.
we can all laugh at that and be critical of that, but sometimes we're doing that on much smaller levels. And you can actually find out a lot when you just ask parents a few questions, you know, or ask teenagers just a few questions. You can and don't jump to conclusions, but you can begin to get a sense of what the general spirit of that household is about, or what direction they're headed. Nick, comment?
Some of the, and we always thought it was funny, but it was also
Look
kind
at
of
me.
ridiculous.
There
We
you
had
go.
sorry, I'm trying to
I have
multitask.
to read your lips.
You know, you'd get these calls for, when we worked at the fire department for, you know, go check on these cars and stuff, and there'd be, you know, teenagers broke down on the side of the road, fully capable of changing their tire. No clue how to change a tire. You know, they weren't doing it because they thought, oh, it wasn't safe on the side of the road or something. They had no idea. They couldn't even figure out where to find something. I can remember Dad making us, he's like, you need to learn how to do this stuff. You know, even if we thought it was annoying at the time, like life lessons.
Now, that's like that commercial where the kid calls his dad and says, you know, and the dad says, do you have a lug nut wrench? And the kid says, maybe. And then he tells his friend, is that a lug nut wrench? Has no clue. It is not a lug nut wrench when he's talking. Okay, anybody else? Trudy and Linda, and then we gotta quit.
Okay, one thing my kids and grandkids have found out about grandma, is don't tell me you're bored, because I will find something for you to do.
Yeah, that's a good one. If you tell Trudy you're bored, you better get your work boots on.
It's so fun.
Okay, Linda, last one.
You do want to give your kids a credit card in their name, get a credit established, because if they're paying cash for everything, and they want to get a car, you are going to get a car.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Welcome to the world of the 21st century. I mean, so what? If when I was partying, it was 1976, and that was a totally different world than it is today. Okay, let's quit there. Thank you. We'll pick up there next week. So study these, and if you see some scriptures that tie in well, Adam, give me feedback.
And, well,